Hello, my name is C0LONIALISM from Edukea Tanzania. I'm an HL2 teacher of advanced level. So welcome to proceed with our topic here, which is called neocolonialism and the question of underdevelopment in third world countries. Remember, on the last session we ended on the internal factors for underdevelopment in less developing countries. So let us proceed with external factors for underdevelopment in third world countries. The first external factor, it is colonial domination. It means colonial domination has been accelerated the underdevelopment of third world countries, in the sense that after the coming of colonialists in third world countries, especially in Africa, they established with different strategies to ensure that there is intensive exploitation of natural resources. So in one way or another, those colonial masters were ensuring the exploitation of natural resources in third world countries. For example, in Africa, the minerals like gold, diamond were taken by those colonialists. For example, in Congo, the gold were taken by the colonial master in Congo. So in South Africa, the British colonial master were exploiting the diamond and the gold there to be exported to their mother countries. So you can see how colonial domination, which was started in the last quarter of 19th century, in the last quarter of 19th century, after the Second World War, has been contributed to the underdevelopment in the third world countries. Another, it is foreign aids. The foreign aids which are being provided by the imperialistic powers has contributed much on the underdevelopment in the third world countries, in the sense that the foreign aids, like the giving loans, subsidies and grants, has been contributed to the underdevelopment in the third world countries, whereby those loans or aids come up with conditionalities which are asked to the third world countries, and that loans contain the high interest rate must be paid by those third world countries. So in one way or another, that loans led to the underdevelopment or to the collapse of the economy in the third world countries, because the high amount of money just being paid back due to the loans or the debt which being in their imperialist powers. So you can see how it has been contributed to the underdevelopment in the third world countries. Another, it is direct investment factor. It means that due to the presence of various Western companies, so various foreign investment through the multinational corporations like Coca-Cola, Caterpillar, and BP, British Petroleum, those companies which are just exploiting the resources of third world countries and make the third world country to remain poor, because their resources are being taken by those imperialistic powers to their homeland for being to be processed and manufacturing the various industrial goods and being returned back in third world countries for certain market. So another factor or external factor for underdevelopment in less developed countries, it is imperialistic control of the world market. It means that the imperialist powers are ensuring the controlling over the world market, whereby the World Trade Organization, WTO, it is just fixing the low prices for for third world countries goods and goods or products, and just fixing the high price for the developed countries goods or products. So you can see that the market of the less developed countries become poor or decline. So that led to the accumulation of less capital, and the economy will probably collapse. So due to the imperialistic control of the world market, whereby the Western goods or Western products compete with the locally made goods of third world countries, of the third world country, that led to the fall of internal market, and those local made goods are not being purchased in the market. So in one way or another led to the underdevelopment in third world countries. Another is the question of oil crisis. It means that the oil which is needed in third world countries is just expected to be imported from oil producer countries like Middle East, in Egypt, in Libya, in Niger, and other Middle East countries which are rich in producing oil. So once those imperialistic powers just taking oil involved in the oil crisis, whereby USA just taking a lot of or a large amount of oil from Middle East, led to the increase of oil crisis in third world countries, and led to the price fluctuation, and led to the increase of high price of oil in third world countries, and probably will lead to the collapse of other activities. So it will lead probably the underdevelopment in third world countries. Another, it is brain drain and costly experts. It means that brain drain and costly experts is when the local professionals or local skilled laborers are just migrating. So another, it is brain drain and costly experts, whereby the local skilled laborers are just migrate from their natural or origin lands or countries and want to work on the abroad, where they will be paid the high wages. So in that sense, the third world countries that will remain with no skilled laborers who can contribute on the discoveries and the invention of various technologies. So that will lead to the underdevelopment in third world countries. But the third world countries decide to employ the foreign experts who are very expensive, and they need high payments. So in one way or another, it led to the use of large amount of money, or a lot of money in paying those experts to perform various activities or technological advancement in third world countries, and that led to the underdevelopment in third world countries or third world nations. Another, it is Cold War politics. It means that Cold War politics have been still conducting in the third world countries, where the imperialistic powers are just struggling or still struggling to spread their ideologies in those third world countries. For example, USA in Congo, just the imperialist power just struggling to spread capitalist ideology or imperialist ideology. So in that sense, the other side, the USSR or communism ideology, they are struggling to spread their ideologies. But For example, in Angola, the USCR were supporting Agustin Neto, who were the leader by that time, and the USCR on the other side was supporting the Jonas Savimbi, who established the guerrilla war to overthrow the Jonas Savimbi, the existing president, and that led to the underdevelopment because those countries were involving themselves in fighting rather than in production in different economic activities. So in one way or another led to the underdevelopment of third world countries. And the Cold War politics, their main aims, it led to those third world countries into fighting themselves, and they use that chance to chop their natural resources for their benefit. So those imperialist powers, they exploit natural resources when the third world countries are fighting through the use of Cold War politics. After looking the external factors for underdevelopment in less developing countries, let us see historical factors for the underdevelopment of the third world countries or third world. The first one was early contact from 200 BC or before Christ. It means that the early contact which conducted with which involved the Middle East and the Far East to be contacted with the third world countries led to the underdevelopment, whereby those Arabs and the people from Far East were exchanging the precious metal with their various goods like ornaments, belts, mirror, and gunpowder. Those were valueless goods and were exchanged with gold, diamond, silver, animal skins, and the other resources. So you can see in one way or another the unequal exchange which were taking place during the early contact led to the underdevelopment of third world countries. Another, it is just mercantilism. Mercantilism, this was started in 15th century after the collapse of feudalism, whereby the European countries decided to conduct overseas trade. And among of the mercantilism led to the flight of European powers to Africa or third world countries to accumulate the bullions or the precious metals which were gold and silver and other precious resources which were needed in the imperialistic powers or European countries by that time. So you can see the piracy and the plundering were used as the ways of accumulation of capital that led to the underdevelopment of the third world. Another or third historical factors for the underdevelopment of third world, it is the question of slave trade. It means that the slave trade also underdeveloped the third world countries in one way, whereby the slaves were transported from their homelands to the plantations and mines which were established by the imperialist powers. For example, during the triangular slave trade which was conducted during mercantilism or capitalism, in the first stage of development in mercantilism, whereby Western Africa were providing slaves to plantations where those plantations in America which were established by the European nations like Britain, France, Italy, and Portugal in the America after the discovery of that new world by Christopher Columbus in 1942. So these slaves were taken to produce in those productive areas, and the Africans were left with a high number of women, children, and adult people. So those were unproductive people, or they were no longer to produce for for development of the nation. So in one way or another led to the stagnation of economy of third world countries. Another, it was colonialism factor. Colonialism was started after 19th century or last quarter of 19th century, after the Second World War, when the European nations or imperialist powers wanted to expand their interest in Africa and the other third world countries in order to revamp or to find the method or strategies on revamping their affected economies by the world wars. So you can see British rulers expanded their interest in Africa, for example in Tanganyika, Kenya, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and the other nations, whereby Britain were expanded their territory in order to ensure there is surplus, there is enough correction or accumulation of raw materials for feeding their industries, and intensive exploitation of natural resources from African countries and other third world countries, where she was expanded to take those needed resources or natural resources. So in that way, colonialism also contributed to the underdevelopment of the third world. After looking this, there is another, this is question of new colonialism. The new colonialism which has been established after the many third world countries to get their independence in 1916s. So you can see the indirect ways of domination of third world countries was introduced by imperialistic powers. For example, the former colonies of Britain were establishment of various ways in dominating those colonies, like establishment of military bases in Kenya. So these were the major methods of dominating the third world countries. Another was the establishment or adoption, forcing the third world countries to adopt a Western system of politics, like a multi-party system, which was adopted by Tanzanians in 1992, and it was implemented in 1995 when Benjamin Mkapa became the president of Tanzania. So this was another causes or historical factor that led to the underdevelopment of third world countries. And the last one, it is globalization. Globalization, it is just the keeping the world into a single globe and or other village. It means the whole world is just being kept in a small piece of network, and it's being controlled by the advancement of science and the technology. So globalization, or the operation of globalization, whereby various strategies have been established, like the structural adjustment program, which forces the accepting of foreign investments. So you can see this accelerated to the underdevelopment of third world countries. So after looking the historical factors for the underdevelopment of the third world country, let us see the solutions are the last subtopic in our topic, which is the solutions or efforts to be employed in solving the problem of underdevelopment and the new colonialism in the third world countries. So the solutions to be employed to solve the problem of underdevelopment and the new colonialism in the third world countries, it is the first one, it is adoption of self-reliance policy. It means that the self-reliance policy insisted that the third world countries must be depend on themselves, because on depending abroad to get assistance, so financial assistance will make them to still be under development, where the self-reliance policy was firstly introduced by the Tanzania or Tanganyika presidents Julius Kambarage Nyerere, or the first president Julius Kambarage Nyerere. So the self-reliance insisted the third world countries to involve themselves to be independent, or to involve themselves in the production in different economic activities, so that they can produce for themselves and use the present natural resources in their country, and to escape from depending from abroad. Another solution to be taken, it is strengthening the regional economic integration. It means the way of strengthening the regional economic integration will assist those third world countries to be the single unit, and to decide the single thing, or the single decision. For example, the strengthening of COMESA, East or EAC, SADC and the others. COMESA is just a common market for East and Southern Africa, and East Africa Community, EAC, and the SADC, which is South African Development Community. So this regional economic integrations to be strengthening, whereby they have to come up with various strategies, like the introduction of the same currency or single currency, the countries which fall under the one economic integration, or to form the trading centers which will unite them to trade under the one conditions, and various strategies which must introduce to guide them in the economic activities for their development. Another is the establishment of strong economic diversification. It means the third world countries are supposed to establish strong economic diversification, or economic activities, means to establish different economic activities like agriculture, industry, mining, fishing, tourism, and the other economic activities, so that they can revamp or they can strengthen their economy. For example, in many third world countries, they are just relying on agriculture or agricultural activities only, and they just give less priority to those other economic activities like industries. So in one way or another, that made them to be under development. But what the solution to be done, they have to establish a strong economic desertification, or strong economic activities which they have to involve themselves for ensuring there is high production of sufficient goods and the products for feeding the present population and the other purpose, like commerce purpose. Another, it is the adjustment of education system. It means the education system must be changed from the system which is adapted, or which was adapted from abroad or from the Western. So in order to make the education system of the third world countries to be resemble with the existing environment, it means that the education system which present in the third world countries does not match with the third world countries environment. So you can find that someone has completed the universities or has been graduated from universities or colleges, but he or she can't involve, or she can't make anything which concerning which skills and knowledge which they have got from the universities or colleges. For example, you can find someone who has graduated in information communication technology, but he or she can't operate the advanced technologies in computers or making websites or some accounts or application development. They can't do because the system or the education system which they are getting in the third world countries does not match with the environment where they are. So, but in another way, you can find the engineers who have graduated, but they can't innovate anything. They are there to wait for being employed. So in one way or another, they can make the development in the nation. So what the third world countries have to do to readjust or to change the education system, to remove that the African or the system of education which go hand in hand with the existing environments. Another, it is developing local and appropriate technologies. It means the third world countries must develop and establish appropriate technologies which must fit or suit the development of the third world countries. For example, to invest much in local technologies on production of various goods and products. For example, in agricultural activities, they must encourage in using local tools and improving that local tools to be the advanced one without depending on abroad, so that they can make themselves to develop without depending the assistance from the imperialistic powers. Another of the last solutions or method or the way which it must be done to escape from underdevelopment, it is encouraging local investors. It means that the emerging of local investors who are being discouraged by their governments. So by discouraging those local investors, made them to have negative attitude towards the local investments. So that's why the third world countries are supposedly to encourage the local investment in order to make the increase of economy, whereby the production will increase compared to the foreign investors as they did, because the foreign investors are supposedly to pay 3 up to 5% of the investment. So you can see the income or the national revenue is being collapsed or is low because of the contribution by the foreign investors. So these were the solutions to be employed to solve the problem of underdevelopment and the new colonialism in the third world countries. And after that, there is an exercise which is assesses the external factors for underdevelopment in the third world countries. Until there, this is the end of our lesson. Thank you for listening to me and have a good day.